Senator Cantwell, thank you, Senator Murray, for pulling us together on this important and sadly timely topic. Now, it's worth remembering that when any of us takes our oath of office, us as senators and even Donald Trump as President of the United States, you become a senator for all your constituents. Donald Trump became a president for all Americans, not just for red states or for blue states, but for every state and every community equally. Yet since the minute Donald Trump returned to office, he set out to politicize the office that he holds. He's threatened to condition disaster aid to our constituents who are victims of the January fires and working hard to rebuild their homes and communities. He's installed loyalists at the Department of Justice, and we've seen the horrible consequences of that. And look what's just played out in these last 24 hours. At Trump's direction, Republicans in the Senate have decided to go nuclear on the Senate rules simply to attack the authority that California has enjoyed for more than 50 years to set our own emission standards to clean our air and protect the public health of Californians. Now that alone is unprecedented. But as we've learned that President Trump is trying to take hundreds of billions of dollars in flood prevention funding away from the states that happen to not to vote for him and redirect them to projects in states that did support his election, it's absolutely wrong. In California, that means cutting every last dollar of funding that was marked for flood control projects, more than $126 million in funding, which would have significant and devastating consequences for our state. Now, 1 in 5 Californians, all right, our state population is nearly 40 million, I think 8 million Californians are exposed to flood risk each and every year. California is actually home to several high-risk areas, but the most at-risk area in the nation for catastrophic flooding is the Sacramento-Natomas Basin, just outside our state capital. Now, for as heartless and brazenly partisan as it sounds, I guess we shouldn't be shocked, because that's just how this president has chosen to serve. The same administration who in January ordered the Army Corps of Engineers to, quote, open the valves and release water from 2 reservoirs in the Central Valley as he was trying to politicize the LA fires. The end result of that was not any sort of relief to the fires in Los Angeles, but 2 billion gallons of water wasted. Water no longer available for growers come the hot, dry summer months. For a president so obsessed with finding waste, fraud, and abuse, I think I know where he can find it. He just has to look in the mirror. He is a fraud. He's wasting taxpayer resources, and he's abusing his office. And as a result, communities up and down the state of California, from farmers and farm workers in the Central Valley to farmers and farm workers in the Pajaro Valley along the coast, all these communities and others are now at higher risk of flooding because Donald Trump's playing politics with federal funding. It's wrong and has to stop. And not only do we say it's wrong, we can demonstrate the right way to do it. See, in the prior 4 years, investment in our infrastructure was done on a bipartisan basis. We helped address the needs of red states and blue states working together. And states were better prepared against potential catastrophic flooding. So today, yes, we're calling on President Trump to do the right thing, stop playing these political games, reinstate the California Army Corps' flood prevention funding, and genuinely work to protect all American lives. And with that, I am proud to introduce my colleague representing California, Senator Schiff.
Alex, thank you, and Senator Murray, thank you for bringing us together, and thank you more broadly for your leadership in making sure that the resources of the country are appropriated in a nonpartisan way that meets the needs of all Americans. It is good to be with you, although I regret the occasion that brings us together. We are witnessing a politically motivated, total zeroing out of crucial federal funding for Army Corps projects in California and other blue states to funnel funding towards projects in red states. It is as simple and as ugly and as blatant a political move as that. This move to eliminate essential funding for projects with the simple intention these projects have of saving lives and preventing floods. This action threatens millions of people from both parties and puts lives at risk. This is deeply personal for all of us and our states. In the case of California, we face natural disasters year-round, and the Army Corps plays a vital response role in assisting states before, during, and after natural disasters. Yet in California, we're seeing over $125 million in cuts to flood prevention projects. With the administration's Army Corps funding plan, 2/3 of the budget will support projects in red states, and only 1/3 will support projects in blue states. In California, it is flood protection projects that are completely zeroed out in this budget as part of the total $1.5 billion in cuts to Army Corps construction funding. The termination of projects like these is especially concerning given that their purpose is to protect communities, and in particular, at-risk frontline communities. The projects that were underway but now have been cut are in place to protect these communities against flood risk. This includes 4 significant flood prevention projects in California. One of the projects that my colleague Senator Padilla referenced to lose funding is Sacramento's Natomas Basin. The Army Corps describes it as, quote, one of the most at-risk areas in the nation for catastrophic flooding. This is what the president would zero out. One of the most at-risk areas in the nation. Another project zeroed out the West Sacramento Levee Project. This is an area that encompasses 2 basins, has a population of 48,000 residents, and surrounds vital infrastructure, including postal service centers, Department of Water Resources flood fight facilities, CHP Academy, the Port of West Sacramento, and others. This location, the Corps has said, has, quote, a high probability of flooding due to its location. And now that project won't get the funding that it needs. The Pajaro River Flood Risk Management Project was previously set to receive the funding it needed to provide 100-year flood risk reduction to the city of Watsonville and the town of Pajaro. That has now been cut. Pajaro, as many of you may know, was the scene of that tragic flood because of a lack of investment. And finally, Pajaro would get investment, and the administration is cutting it. In 2023, a flood devastated hundreds of homes, and this project was intended to remedy how vulnerable this community is to further disaster. The San Joaquin River Basin Project is another critical project addressing significant flood risks in the Central Valley. These flood prevention projects were set to gain the funding they needed, but now it's our most at-risk Americans that will pay the price for these chaotic threats to cancel funding. We're not going to stand by as they plan out this roadmap that includes drastic and harmful cuts. Natural disasters don't discriminate based on whether a state is red or blue, and the administration and Congress shouldn't either when it comes to protecting communities from natural disaster. This puts us on a very dangerous path, a path where anything can be on the chopping block for a partisan reason. Today it's funding for these projects. Tomorrow could be another form of funding meant to save lives. There will be a domino effect of threats aimed at blue states. When you're elected to be president of the United States, you're not a half president. You're not president for only half of the country, not if you do the job right. These baseless attacks threaten millions of people from both parties whose lives are endangered by floods. We need to remind the administration that a state may be blue or red, but it contains millions of people who are both blue and red. It's clear the Trump administration is politicizing the Army Corps and its critical mission to provide resources and stability to communities and states. When the fires broke out in LA earlier this year, we saw threats from the president and the administration to cut funding to California to help these communities rebuild. And during this time, we also saw the president order the release of water from 2 California reservoirs, water that could not and did not reach Los Angeles. The release was done by Doge, quote, to satisfy Trump, unquote. That's what the Army Corps said about the order to waste billions of gallons of water from California reservoirs, all for a photo op. It was dangerous because it could have led to flooding, and now we're seeing funding cuts to flood prevention projects aimed at protecting our communities. When people need help, we help them. When people are fighting to rebuild, we help them rebuild. And when people need protection from flooding, we assure funding is in place so they're protected. No matter who the president is, no matter who's in charge of Congress, no matter who the governor is or who the senators are, no matter what state it is or what color of the state, this cannot and should not change. If this continues and we don't stand up, this administration will continue to single out blue states for less protection for all of their citizens. To those of us who experience disaster in our states, and it's all of us, we must show a sense of urgency. Because when disaster strikes and the floods rise, the only thing that matters is whether or not your government has been there for you when you needed it. People don't have time for partisan political games. We cannot allow another community or another state to be the target of cruel, unwarranted budget cuts and complete neglect at the hands of this administration. Thank you.